Hey guys, welcome to part two. So this car's been sitting a little bit, and I've been doing other videos and stuff. Let me find my keys, because I got all my keys right there. So right now, it's raining. Of course, it started raining when I was trying to do this. And so right now, underneath my hood, it is 118 degrees on a 44 degree day, 116 degrees. It'll probably cool off a little bit before it starts warming up. So with this idling, I showed you this in part one, and so part two is what I did to fix, not really fix, but to help. All right, so I just started this to show you what it was right now. It's pulling in 116 degree air into the intake. So I'm gonna shut it off, and I'm gonna make sure I take my keys with me, because I don't want to lock my keys in my car ever again, since I did when I was like 19. Alright, so this is what I did. Pop the hood over here. So, factory intake has a K&N filter in there, but that doesn't really matter. What I did is I took the factory air inlet, which is right here, and actually that just, when I put my headlights in, that moved a little bit. So anyway, still works. The factory air inlet is down in here. Right, it's actually even, pretty much even with this right here. I got a flexible tube from AutoZone. It's like a what's the brand? Spectre, I believe, intakes they have and stuff. Just a flexible tube, and I ran it from here, and I went straight down. This is on my 06 Monte Carlo, by the way. Straight down, and you find the panel for the fog light access, and you cut it off. It's body color. You cut it off, and I put that tube right down in there. So when you're looking at it head on, it looks like that. So it scoops air off of the ground. It's because the car is so low, it does pull a bit of the hot air off the road on hot days, but overall it still helps it out a lot, like tremendously. So it pulls in the colder air from outside. So what happens with that, I'm going to get in here since it's raining. This phone is not waterproof like my other one is, and you can see it's getting pretty rainy. So that helps cool off the intake temp. So I said in part one, at least I think I did, I've done a lot of videos. I'm just going to point this out. I did a lot of videos, and I spaced it, so I had it set to like 4K, and it just filled up my memory, so I had to start over. Then my battery on my phone was dying, so I had to start over, because it, stopped the video early, so I had to start over. So I've done like 15 videos, and this is technically the third one I'm recording. The third one I'm keeping. So anyway, I don't know if I described it, so I apologize, but I'll still recap. This thing was telling me that it was on a 50 degree day, that I was pulling in 130 degree air. The situation was, it warmed up all the way. I drove it to AutoZone, not a sponsor, but I drove it to AutoZone, was there for like 15-20 minutes. I came back out, and my air intake was pulling in 130 degree air. So what happens is the engine is hot, it heats up the air under the hood, and it doesn't really escape. There's not really a lot of outlets for it to escape from. And it heat soaks the intake tube and the intake itself. So when you start driving, you're pulling in cooler air. I don't know if it's just a flaw in the sensor. I don't think it's a bad sensor, I'll say that, but I don't know if it's like a flaw in the sensor where it's attached to the plastic, so it's reading the plastic temperature, or if it's actually reading the air and the air is actually heating up that much. But I wouldn't think that when you start driving, you're pulling in 120 degree air or 130 degree air after you start driving. I would think it would be like pretty instantly being the temperature outside minus a little bit of heat up, like 5 or 10 degrees, but I couldn't see it being the 70 degree difference. So with that being said, I put that tube in, and the first time, I should say, before I put the tube in, I drove about 10 minutes. Most of my town is 35 miles an hour. There is a stretch of about a mile that's 55. So and it's right after, like, you pull out of AutoZone and it's like onto a 55-mile-an-hour road. So pulled out of there. Sorry, 50. It's not 55. It's 50. So I pulled out of there and I drove around and I realized that my intake temp wasn't really dropping. So I was like, okay, well, it dropped, but the farthest it went down, and like I said, it was 50 outside. The farthest it went down was 73 degrees. That's my intake was pulling in 73 degree air still after 10 minutes. And that's with like normal driving. I tried to get on the gas a little bit here and there just to see if it would suck in cooler air and cool it off quicker and stuff. And, just tried to bring it down a little bit, but then I just figured I'd just drive it around and then I would do a mod and, do it again. So it'd be easier to replicate if I was driving normally. So I did the tube. It doesn't fix it. So of course, when you're idling, it's still going to heat up. You're still pulling in air, from the headlight area. My tube, I didn't mention this when I was out there. I didn't really show it. That tube is not sealed to the inlet of the factory intake. It is up against it, but there's still a gap there. The bottom is touching, but the top isn't. I was messing around with my headlights. I was adjusting my headlights yesterday, and I think I pushed the tube down a little bit, so it's not quite where it was, but it still works. So as you're moving, the air off the, basically below the bumper is hitting that tube and getting pulled up into it. So it cools off the intake temps in about half the time. It took about 6 minutes, and it dropped it. And by the way, this was on a 60-degree day, so it was a warmer day. Both days were sunshine, and they were pretty similar days, just 10-degree difference. And I dropped that temperature down in 6 minutes to 8 degrees above ambient from 23 after 10 minutes without it. So I'd say that's a pretty decent, drop. And I think they said something like 20 degrees or so. Like if you looked it up on online, or even there's an engineering explained on YouTube explains it too. It's something like 20 or 30 degrees Fahrenheit difference. I think it's 20 degrees is like 1 horsepower gain. You're not going to notice that, but it's still making your engine run better to have cooler air. So to have it drop down faster, it's better. And then going like 70 on the highway, I'm getting like 2 to 3 degrees above ambient. Even if it's sunny outside, doesn't matter. I'm still getting, well, usually if it's sunny, it's like 3 degrees. Because what happens is, like I explained, the black top and the color of the road is usually gray or black. It soaks a lot of the UV rays into it, so it gets really hot. It's like when you touch, if you have a black vehicle, if you touch the hood, it's hot. Or even any dark vehicle, and if you have a white vehicle, it doesn't soak in those rays that much. So it doesn't get as hot. So the road does that. It has that effect. So having that tube where I do, it's still on hot days can pull in some air. If you're behind other cars, the way the draft, the air currents work and stuff, it swirls behind the car, so the air on the ground and the air above, 4 feet above the ground are going to mix together in a swirl before you hit it if you're behind a bunch of traffic. So in a way, you're not really going to see that hot air off the pavement unless you're like the only car on the road pretty much. And it's really not that much of a deal. I mean, you're still pulling in, you're moving, you're still pulling in cooler air than what's under the hood. So with that being said, like I said, you get a little bit more power. I mean, I don't notice it, but if you're pulling in cooler air, your engine is running better. It's better for your engine. But with that, that's it's not a fix, but it's my idea for a, what do you call it? A helper. I actually call that an intake helper tube. I don't know if that's my own idea. I did that years ago on a truck. Now, like even like the Hellcat and stuff, they have a little scoop that goes into the headlight area. Actually goes it's inside one of the rings on the headlights. It's like the inner headlight on the driver's side or something. And that scoops in cool air from in front of you. It's higher off the ground, so you don't get the same deal. Like, I don't get the same cool air that would be getting. Mine's a little bit hotter from being closer to the pavement, but it's still the same process in a way. The Hellcat one is more sealed than mine. Mine just leads up to it. And the purpose for that, for one, is moisture and snow. Like if you get water or snow spraying up from the ground or raining, whatever, it has to travel like straight up for about 1.5 feet to get into the intake tube and then get into my intake, which my filter's still there, so that blocks it too. So what that does is it keeps it so you want to have a good steep angle at it, and that'll keep, you know, snow and moisture and stuff from getting up there. If you try to do it pretty much even with the intake like the Hellcat is, you're basically relying on your filter or possibly the shape of the, you know, how many curves there are in the tube and stuff to try to make the moisture hit the walls and stuff and come out of the air, whatever. But for the most part, though, like it's level with the intake, so you have a little bit more chance of like moisture getting in there. You still have your filter, so you wouldn't have an issue because of the filter. But you know, in front of that filter, you might still get a little bit of moisture in there. So this way, that makes it so I don't have to worry about hitting a puddle or even going through a little bit of deeper water. I'm not going to because that's unsafe. But if I were going to, I wouldn't really have to worry about it. Especially because it's not connected at the top either. So if I were to completely submerge that bottom part into water, it's not going to suck in water because there's an inch gap above there. So it's basically like the air is being pushed up to it, and if the air intake needs air, it'll pull it in. But that's not the only source of where the intake will pull in the air from. So it's probably mostly pulling in air from that tube, but it's probably still pulling in some air from inside the hood, you know, underneath the hood. It's probably like a mixture, but for the most part, the way that shape, or the way the tube is, you know, put up there, it's mostly pulling in air that comes up that tube. And just for that, like I said, I haven't noticed gas mileage, I haven't noticed power. Just knowing that the engine itself is running cooler, you know, makes me know that it's better for it. So, other than that, though, like I said, this is my Scangauge2. This is how I found out about that. Great device to have. So, I don't think I mentioned this in part 1 because, like I said, I did quite a few videos. I did mention it in one of the videos I did, but I erased it. Because I messed up somehow. So this thing is great. It's a great tool to have. It's a stand tool, and it also reads gauges that are from your sensors in your car. What I did not mention, I should say, if you want to learn about this, watch part 1. Here, I'm just going to give you a little thing here, because part 1 doesn't say it. I don't think. So the only thing that these are not good for is if you have a vehicle that has the cylinder deactivation process on it. For Dodge, it is called MDS, for multi-displacement system. For Chevys, I believe it's all GM. I'm not sure. I just know on the Impalas and the Monte Carlos in the 5.3 liter SS, the V8 SS. From 2006 to 2007 in the Monte Carlo, and I believe it's 06 to 08 in the Impala. They have the cylinder deactivation. It is called displacement on demand, which is it's DOD for short. Same deal. Because what happens is you set this to a certain size engine. This is set to 3.9 liters. So what happens is if this were to shut off half the cylinders, I would technically be running a 1.95 liter engine, because that's what the displacement would be with the cylinder shut off. You're not burning the fuel. So what it does is it'll still read, it just reads wrong. So it'll say that you're getting like 10 miles per gallon, or it'll say you're getting 60 miles per gallon when you're getting like 30. Because it's thinking that you're all of a sudden only using half the fuel that you were, you know, so it bumps it up. So it affects your, the things that records on this. It affects anything that has to do with gas. It changes on this. It doesn't read right. So all the other stuff like water temp and air intake temperature, that stuff will still read. But anything that has to do with gasoline, it will not be correct. So that's what I want to point out. Like I said, I didn't say in the first one. I do have one vehicle that does not have, does have the cylinder deactivation. So I cannot put this in there. It's a newer vehicle. It's a 15 Challenger RT. But inside the dash and stuff, it has more information than like this car does from 2006. So it tells me transmission temp and oil temp and all that stuff. So there's still some things that this tells me that doesn't, but it's not the stuff that I really need to know. It's not really the important stuff. This is like the keeping track of the fuel and stuff like that is what my Challenger doesn't have, like how much it cost for the trip and what the gas price was last time I filled up, stuff like that. So it'll keep track of the other stuff, but I don't need it. So, but I think that's where I'm going to complete this. If you have any questions about the Scangauge, I am not. They are not a sponsor. I bought this with my own money. I love these things. I have had 3 of them. I have one in here. I have one in my Ram. I'm going to do a video of the Ram also, just to do a little comparison video. But I love these things. If you have a vehicle from 97 up that has the OBD2 port, which everything from 97 up should, it plugs into the OBD2 port on the bottom, which is your diagnostic port. That's the technical name, is OBD2. So plugs into that, stays plugged in. It's not a tuner. It's if you get a check engine light, it reads it. It also reads a lot of gauges that your car doesn't show you. Like it reads more stuff and displays it more than the normal car does. There's like 30 different things on there that you can do. It's a nice little device. They're like $150. I got this one for, I believe, $150. And the one that's in the Ram I got it on sale at AutoZone for like $100. A couple months ago, actually. And same thing. Love it. Love having it in there. You can leave it in there all the time. I'm probably going to buy a third one. I have 4 vehicles. Like I said, the Challenger doesn't need it. It doesn't really matter in that. But I have this 06 Monte Carlo. I have my 04 Ram, which is next to me. And then the other side of that, which you probably can't see through the water, which is like right there. You can see the window and the tube and stuff that's up there. So that's my 2008 Chevy Uplander cargo van. I just bought that, and I really want to get one of these and put in it. I'm debating. I like having it in here, but this car doesn't give me any problems. So, and knowing, like what that gauge, like when it's at that line, I know what the number is now. So, like I know that when it's in the middle, it's like 200. So, I basically don't really need this in here. It's just nice to have for like, comfort, or what do you call it? Security, like, like kind of like having like roadside assistance type of thing. Like I guess it's not like that, but, you have a little bit more information, so you know what's going on a lot more. You can look at 4 different things at a time, so you can find out more about what's wrong with your vehicle if it's not throwing a check engine light, and you can learn a little bit. You can actually learn a little bit about your vehicle and how it drives and how it not handles, but like how it you might be getting 40 miles per gallon. I'm not saying I don't. But if you might be getting 40 miles per gallon at like 65 miles an hour, but just going to 70 kicks it down to like 30. There's certain cars, like I had a vehicle that if you're going 65, you get like 25 miles per gallon in a V6. But if you're going 70, you were getting like 18. And the funny thing was, like, the cutoff on it was like 67. If you're going 67, it was like, you still got good gas mileage. It was like 24. But if you went to 68, it went down to like 20. It was weird. So it's nice to be able, you can adjust your driving habits by knowing. A lot of vehicles have the stuff, like you can get the instant miles per gallon and average miles per gallon. So this one has both of those. The Ram has the average, it doesn't have the instant. So it's nice to have this in that, to have like more of a real time of what it's doing. You know what I mean? Like this one tells me too, but that one, like, you can adjust your driving style to how much gas mileage you're getting, and you can figure out that speed, like, hey, at 67 I'm getting 25, and at 68 I'm getting 20. Why? So you can from now on drive it if you're going for like hypermiling. You can, if you're taking a long cross country trip and the speed limit's 65, I don't condone speeding, but flow of traffic is faster than 65. I'm sorry. But if you know your gas mileage is still good at that speed, go 67. Set the cruise at 67. You'll have the most efficient, I should say, combination of the quickest trip and the most efficient trip. And also be keeping up with traffic 2 miles an hour faster, you know, so you'll still get past a lot, but you're not going 65 or, you know, keeping up with traffic slightly better. So, but yeah, other than that, if you have any questions, I'm going to hop in my Ram and do another video. If you have any questions though, just comment down below and I will try to get on and, you know, answer any questions and stuff. But this is coronavirus shutdown time, so I got plenty of time. So that's why I'm doing this in the first place. I haven't done YouTube videos in a while, so I was like, hey, I can do some YouTube videos. But I would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. I thank you very much for doing that, and I'm going to try to do more videos here in the future. I don't have a whole lot of stuff to really talk about, but I'll try to at least do reviews on the vehicles I'm doing or something. So, all right. So thanks for watching my video. And like I said, like and comment, or like and subscribe and comment if you really want to. But I would appreciate it. Thanks.